Drop the point. Drop the point. Drop the point. Drop the point. No zero Hambone gonna drop the point. Drop the point. No zero Hambone. What is the point? Drop the point.
Hello world and welcome back to another episode of Drop the Point. I am Hambone and I'm joined today with Nolxero. What up, Zero?
Not much, man. Happy to be here. It's been a nice day watching the Twitch stream.
Absolutely, dude. If you don't know, the Bungie reveal happened today, which is Wednesday, the 2nd of September. And it was we'll get into it. So just before we jump into it, a couple formalities. If you want to send us a topic for Drop the Point, you can email that to onpoint@aimassistgaming.com, or you can tweet it to us on Twitter by following @aimassistgaming. So with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into this week's episode on the Court of Oryx. All right, Zero. So I know you watched the live reveal on Twitch, as did I. And as soon as the reveal got started, Laced Up Lauren was the special guest this week for anybody who didn't know. What do we see? Sword. So they didn't make us wait this week at all. We saw the sword right off the bat, and it was an exotic sword. How glorious did you think that sword looked?
Oh, dude, I was stoked. As soon as I saw them open it up and show us and everything, I was like, thank you. This is what I want to see. I wanted to see this last time. But they did it this time, so I'm happy to see it, and it's really cool. I mean, I'm stoked to have a sword. I don't even care if it's a good option. I don't care if the sword is a good option. I just want it, and I want to use
absolutely.
it. Because y'all know me. I like to use the weapons that everybody's like, oh, those are crap weapons.
So. Like No Land Beyond?
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. Best weapon in the game. Zero went flawless with it, just so everybody is aware. But back to the sword, one thing that we do want to note, they said this sword is not available for purchase. So you won't be able to go see Xur to get this one. This is one that you will have to find in the wilderness on your own. Any idea how you might do that?
Well, they last podcast I think it was I was on, we talked about 50 pieces of an exotic spread across the Dreadnought.
Right.
And I believe they shined light that this was the item that they broke into 50 pieces. So it looks like you're going to be playing scavenger hunt. And that's cool with me. And I'm actually glad that Xur won't sell this weapon, because I think that it's cool that they are going to kind of limit what Xur can sell. Because I don't think Xur should be able to have access to sell pretty much every weapon in the game. I think that makes it hard to put an importance on one activity or another if it's like, well, one day Xur will have it, and maybe it'll take forever like a Galahorn, but I will be able to get it from Xur. This actually promotes gameplay and promotes going out and doing things as opposed to waiting for Xur to have something.
Right, absolutely. It's definitely one of those things where it's like you're gonna feel that power and that honor, that like prestige, if you will, when you finally walk into the tower or wherever you are. And it's like, that dude has the sword on his back.
Absolutely. Because, people were like, for the longest time, have been saying like, okay, well, if we can't bring over year one stuff, then how does our weapons tell a story and this and that? And it's like, well, because the only weapons that tell a story currently are raid weapons. Because those weapons, we know exactly where people had to go to get them and what difficulties they had to do the raids on.
Right.
So this actually increases the chance that your weapons that tell a story. This guy found 50 pieces of a sword and put this thing together and did the epic quest to finish it all off. He had to put some work in for this thing. And, that goes to, having legendary. I showed you before the show, Mr. Fruit posted a picture of like this hunter with this like holographic cape on. That actually comes out of the new Dust Palace, the reimagining of the Dust Palace. It's a legendary drop there. So it's cool to see that they're going to have things like this where it's like, okay, I know where they went. I know how they got it. Now I want to do it.
Right. Absolutely, dude. It's definitely going to be awesome to go around and pick up these pieces for the exotic weapon, whether it's the sword or something else. I'm looking forward to that quest. Along those same lines of picking up things that are left on the ground, we saw something called worm spores. And I was a little confused about this one, so I'm not sure exactly if I have all the right info, but we're going to throw it out there and we'll see what it is. I believe I heard them say that the hunter has keen insight, which will allow him to see these spores 100% of the time. You and I looked through the subclass of the Night Stalker, and we aren't sure if you saw something called Keen Scout, but nothing about Keen Insight, right?
Right. The Keen Scout, pulled up on the wiki, it basically says that it will have the ability to give you an enhanced tracker, which I'm assuming, from what I saw in other people posting pictures of like new Ghost and artifacts and all those things equipped to their character, I saw Ghost that had the ability to kind of point out where spin metal was in the world, or where chocolate cake, for those who know set aim assist. So I believe the enhanced tracker actually kind of augments that ability off the Ghost. And just so everybody knows, Keen Scout it gives you a sprint and sneak faster, gained enhanced tracker, and the ability to mark targets you've damaged.
Right on. So beyond the worm spores, we also see that you can find runes. And do you remember how they were actually able to attain some of those runes?
It's funny because I actually didn't pay attention too well at that portion of it. I believe that the runes are just drops within, patrols on the Dreadnought. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that was basically how they were getting them. It could actually be from chests, but yeah, the runes are interesting. Are we going to jump right into the runes right now and talk about
we're gonna move.
The whole rune thing?
Yeah, sure. We'll move into the runes. So the runes, from what I saw, they could drop just from doing patrol type activities on the Dreadnought. There were those little stations with the orb that when you mess with it, it spawns and taken, and they killed a couple, majors. And from, I believe, one of the majors, the rune actually dropped. Then they took those runes. We get a little tour of the Dreadnought, but then they move into what we actually want to see, which is the Court of Oryx. And when they get there, now you get something to do with these runes that you found from patrolling the Dreadnought. So they take it and they put it, and what do they call it? They said they present the rune, and basically you walk up to it. Right? Yeah, to the altar. You walk up to it and you hold square if you're on PlayStation, and it consumes the rune that you found. But the runes themselves are pretty detailed, so we need to break that down. There are tier 1 runes, tier 2 runes, and tier 3 runes. Now, from what they showed us today, you have to start with tier 1. Even if you luck out and you find a tier 3 rune, you will still need to do 3 tier 1s, 3 tier 2s in order to get to your tier 3 rune. It won't be able to be used straight out of the box. Is that what you gathered from today?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of questions here because they didn't, from what I remember, I don't remember them specifically saying that a tier 2 has to charge a tier 3.
Oh, they did. Yeah. Deej made them clarify that you would need to do the same from tier 2 to tier 3.
Okay, I wasn't 100% sure because I was going to say, can tier 1 do it? Because essentially tier 1 would be like 6 tier 1s. The other questions I have is when they talked about the runes and presenting the runes and actually doing the Court of Oryx, it's whoever presents the rune gets the bulk of the reward.
Right.
And so initially, here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking people are going to spawn in to go to the King's Fall. They're going to hit that marker on Dreadnought. Uh-huh. They're going to go in a 6-man team. And if possible, they're going to leave that to go do Court of Oryx with a 6-man team, right? That seems like what's probably going to happen with a lot of clans. Mm-hmm. So my question is, if me and my 6-man team that we left, the King's Fall, or King's Watch, and came over to here to do the Court of Oryx, if we do a tier 1, does everybody in my group get 1 charge on their tier 2s? Because the Court of Oryx seems extremely grindy. Mm-hmm. Because, 1, the rewards that dropped didn't seem, I don't know, they didn't really show them, so it's hard to say that they seemed, viable or worth it.
Right.
But 2, it's like, okay, me and you were breaking this down before the show. If, let's just say, it doesn't charge everybody's rune for doing it.
Right.
Well, then, that means my 6-man team is going to have to do, 3, multiple times.
Right.
And then, so you got 9 if you're a 3-man group, 18 if you're a 6-man group, and it's like that's just to get to tier 2. And then, same thing for tier 3, another 9 or 18 depending on the group, just to get everybody their tier 3 runes so that they can do it. So it seems like a lot of time put into it. I do like the fact that being that, one person's going to be able to present a rune and then go play, and they're going to get the bulk of the rewards, that there is a timer so that they can't just keep popping up there first and throwing another rune on. Because if you're by yourself and you don't have party or don't have a lot of friends to play with, it could be extremely frustrating to go and help a team out, and then you're like, well, I want to get my rune in while there's like 7 people over here, and you go to throw your rune on, and this guy keeps throwing his rune on.
Okay, no, there's definitely a draw to wanting to do this with multiple people, but as you said, the bulk of the rewards are going to go to the person that presents the rune. So at the very least, if you're with a team of 3, you're going to want to at least let everybody get 1 rune in a cycle. So the period that you're talking about, I believe they called it an exhaustion, where you basically have a 40-second cooldown before you're able to present another rune. So my question to you is, though, do you see people doing this? Like, do you see guys like myself and Too Loud not jumping in and going straight to PvP to go do Court of Oryx as a 3-man team? Do you see us 3 doing that?
If I was going based off our personalities, I'd say no. I think because of what we do, of course we'll do it. We're going to go in, we're going to grind the tier 3s out and figure it out and try to see what kind of rewards we get and kind of present that to our community. But it's not something that we would initially jump into. I'm not too excited about it. I was a lot more excited when it was a mystery, because I thought it was going to be more kind of random, and that it would actually be something to look out for on the Dreadnought and be one of those things where at a certain time of day, whatever, multiple times throughout the day or whatever, like regular public events, that you'd have these moments where all of a sudden you're faced with a challenge. And this, I don't know, to me, especially just the fact that if I get the bulk of the rewards, it's like if you don't have a lot of friends and you're like, say I go solo, okay, and I get there and there's 5 people doing it.
Right.
Well, I help those 5 people finish theirs, and then they bail, and I got to do it by myself if I want to do it.
Right.
So that's my concern with this is, obviously, I feel like the charges should come if you participate.
Right.
Or any of them at all. If you have a tier 3 rune and you showed up and they're doing a tier 2, maybe you don't know that, but you just show up and you help out and you participated, then you should get a charge. I think that's the way to be fair about it. But I also just feel like it's extremely grindy. And like I said, they didn't show us tier 3. Deej put the kibosh on that and didn't want to let us see. But if the rewards don't really stack up, then it's too grindy to really justify doing it.
Right, absolutely. And, I was reading chat while I was watching this, and a lot of people were saying, oh, this seems boring, and I don't really know if this is something that I would want to do. Just from my own perspective, it did kind of seem like a mini Prison of Elders, and I'll use that as our segue into the boss mechanics and the actual activity. Just to make sure you're aware, we're saying that this is a public event that is no longer randomly spawned. You activate this. So it's not like, oh, I'm on the patrol and I'm out here doing what I'm doing and it shows up and it's just upon me and we have like split seconds to react. No, this is a planned event. You can talk to your buddies beforehand and be like, oh, let's go do Court of Oryx tonight, which is why to me it seems like a mini PoE. But then we get to see some of the bosses, and the one that I saw that I liked was Vorlog, and that was the first guy that they fought. And they have some interesting mechanics. It's definitely gonna be tough. I believe I read on Twitter that the tier 1s are about level 36 in difficulty, and then they move up progressively to there all the way up to level 40 for tier 3. I'm imagining, which we didn't get to see, but it's not going to be a cakewalk. It's definitely not something. I don't know if I would go in there solo. This seems like another activity.
It doesn't seem like a good idea to go solo. I mean, you might get lucky and there might be people there to help out, but if not, you might really be screwed. I mean, it could really be a situation because it's timed. It's a timed event, just like a real public event. You may actually be able to trigger it, but it's timed. And so going solo might not be the way to go. Even if there's people there that are, in the community but not on your team, I'd still say approach with caution. I wouldn't drop your tier 3 rune on that because who knows if those guys stick around. I mean, if it's incredibly difficult, they might just bail and be like,
right.
See you later. Like, I'm not getting much out of this, so what's the point of staying? That's kind of my concern. Like, I have no problem with them being able to, like, I think that's a good idea, having something that you can go in and spawn and, cause a public event to happen. I just feel like there should be more rewards for everybody involved, and maybe instead of doing, like, multiple tier runes, maybe it's like you drop your rune, make them a little harder to find, drop your rune, and then so you fight the first boss, and now you fight the next boss, and maybe you get a little extended time every time you fight the boss, and you keep going, and maybe the rewards increase as you go along and fight these bosses to however many tiers they want to do. If it's just 3, if they want to do 6, whatever, but they do it like that so that you keep, you're constrained by time and power, right? So as it gets harder, you might not be able to beat it because it's harder and it's more powerful. But also, the time is counting against you. So it becomes this thing where it's like, okay, we got to get good times and we got to kill these things fast. Kill them fast, get the time extension, and stay powerful enough to actually beat these guys.
Right. I mean, it seems like the runes kind of replace the treasure keys from PoE. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you go and you put in a tier 1 rune and you fail, that rune is gone. So if you only had 1 rune, back to the grind for you, and now it's time to go try to find, more runes in order. You might find a tier 2 or whatever, but you're going to have to grind those from what I saw today. I didn't see anything that said, there's a vendor that you're going to be able to buy these from or anything.
Yeah, and that's kind of the scary thing is, like, if you think to PoE, and I agree with you, like, the bosses themselves are very much like the boss fights of PoE. It's like they took all the PoE away and said, here's the boss fights. And the bosses look cool, and it looks like fun, and I'm sure it'll be fun in bursts. Like, I'm sure, like, oh, I have a rune, let's go do a Court of Oryx. We're right here.
Right.
But I don't know that how often I'll be like, let's go over there and do it, because the big deal to me is, like the keys with the runes, how many times did you go into PoE and people didn't want to go with you because they didn't have a key? It took a couple weeks before people were like, oh, who cares if you have a key? But at first, people were like, well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to help and go through PoE. I don't even have a key. And I was like, dude, it doesn't matter. But people didn't think about that way. They were like, well, I don't have a key. I can't open the chest at the end, so I'm not going. So it's like, that becomes the issue with this. Is like, okay, well, I don't really get any rewards for doing it. I don't have a rune. So it's not like you're going to be able to help me do a rune.
Right.
So why should I go help? And so,
there will be some amount of reward, but we don't know what. We don't know how drastic the difference will be. If it's like, I get blue level stuff and you get a legendary, or you get an exotic something and I get a legendary, or
I think
we don't know.
I think as far as rewards go, I think that it should be, if they really want to stick with this, they should stick to, like, maybe you get 3 or 4 drops if it's your rune, and I only get 1, but my luck on that 1 drop could be as significant as your 4 drops. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if 4 engrams pop for you, or, whatever, then I have equal chance of getting legendary exotic stuff as well, but I'm only getting 1 drop. Because that would be enough to say, well, I'll go help. I might get an exotic. I might get a legendary. Okay, I'm down.
Exactly. What if they gave us some type of buff for helping somebody complete their rune that wasn't in your fire team? Or some type of incentive that said, hey, here's a solo guy running this rune. I'm going to jump in and help him. And because you stopped and helped somebody that you didn't know, here's a little extra something. You think that would and maybe eliminate some of the problems that you foresee with it?
Yeah, I mean, that definitely could if there was some kind of buff. Obviously, we love our buffs, and anything that we can do to get a buff towards anything, even if it's, picking up more glimmer, we'll take it. So yeah, I definitely think that would be cool. When you said that, the first thing that popped in my head is, what if we had community reputation, right? So, like, it didn't count towards anything, right? But when people looked at you, like maybe there was something over your, like about your name over your head that would indicate that you are a guy that helps the community. You stop and you help at the public events. That would be a cool feature, man, because it's like you're the white knight in the community. Like they're like, this dude helps. Like, look, we can do our public event right now because this dude's over here, and we don't even got to talk to him because we can tell he helps people. He stops and he helps public events.
Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to have something similar to that in a division, right? That shows, oh, this player is potentially a dirty player or something along those lines, where it lets you know, like, okay, these are guys that you might want to stay away from.
Yeah, that would be a cool feature.
I'm going to ask you a tough question and ask you to make a judgment call on this before we've actually got to experience it ourselves. Is the reveal itself a success today, or was it a success? And do you think that the activity as a whole will be a success?
Well, I think anytime Bungie comes out and tells us what they're doing is a success. 100%. Mm-hmm. They showed after the whole stream that Luke Smith came out and showed, and they kind of showed some stuff that revealed like cutscenes, and I wasn't really down with that because I wasn't trying to see those.
Right.
So I was a little like, oh, come on. I wasn't trying to see all that. Like, I wanted to be surprised by the cutscenes. But overall, like, just showing us what's going on, regardless if we like it, show us. Because then we feel a part of it. Then we get to go on the forums. We get to go on our podcast. We get to go talk to the community about this stuff. And Bungie gets the feedback that they need to plan for the future and continue to progress Destiny. So anytime they show stuff, anytime they're up front and forward with us, I'm down, even if we hate it.
Right. Absolutely. And, for me, I would say I'm on board with them, and I agree with you that just show us. Let us see it. But the issue for me is that they have to always make sure that they show us enough so that there's not the incorrect speculation going around the community.
Right.
If they show too little, people will form their own opinions, and it could be the wrong opinion, and that could really change the way people view the DLC.
And this is why the only thing I didn't like about the last two reveals, as opposed to the first one, is I think that they should have Cosmo over on the laptop like they did on the first one, asking questions that are coming through. Because the big deal here is the questions I have. How many times do I have to run to charge my thing? Is everybody going to get a charge? All these things, like, these are questions that I'm sure would have shown up in chat and that we could have addressed immediately, and it had that information.
I agree. He should be on hand at all times. I mean, he is so used to dealing with the community at large that it makes no sense to me that he is not at every one of these reveals. So in the future, I definitely hope they make sure that Cosmo is there.
I was going to say, because you asked also, is the event itself going to be a success? And so as far as the event itself, I think it could be a success. It just really depends how it's set up initially, and then it might need some tweaks. I think it could be a success. It seems extremely grindy to me right now, and seems like something like I might stay away from long term. But I'm excited that it's not a big portion of the game. It's just the Court of Oryx. It's a public event. It's not a huge portion of the game from what it looks like. So it's not like a huge deal if it's not wonderful.
Right. For me, I would definitely say I am excited about it because, as you just said, this is a public event. So in terms of like Destiny activities, this is bottom of the barrel. This is the lowest of the low in my mind of like the amount of excitement that you can get out of Destiny. So to see them putting this much emphasis and this much care into something that's as simple as a public event, that's very positive for the rest of the game for me, and hopefully means that the rest of the game will be just as stellar and just as detailed. So that's all we really have on the Court of Oryx. But before we get out of here, Bungie, for those that actually watched the Twitch stream live, gave us a little taste of what's coming for the new raid. They actually went ahead and told us when the raid is coming out, and that will be September 18th. They did not give us a time. I'm assuming it's going to be 10 a.m. That's usually their go time, right? Because they're West Coast here, and that makes sure that everybody's in the office, and it's a good time. So they went ahead and they also showed us a sweet trailer for the new raid, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the raid trailer. What did you think?
Well, the raid trailer gets me pumped. It gets me jacked, man. I'm ready.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready to go in and play a new raid, especially
Oh,
something more like Vault of Glass, huge, gonna take
Mm-hmm.
a while, and less like the strike that is the Crota's End. So I'm really excited about that. I it's funny because on the last, for a while I've been speculating 2 weeks out. It was going to be 2 weeks out, and then last podcast I was telling you I think it's going to be closer to day one, if not day one, that that the thing actually happens, and lo and behold, it's 3 days later.
Nostradamus strikes again.
Because I told you, it just seemed like they were putting too much emphasis on the raid as part of the story, and that needs to be something that's completed as opposed to the very last thing you do. Like Vault of Glass, vanilla is like, okay, you've done everything, you've done Nightfalls, you've done everything, go do the Vault of Glass. This time, it definitely seems like they're putting that as like, all right, you've done the story, you've geared up a little bit, go into this, and then continue by going into these other things. I also want to point out that there's more than normal and hard mode for this raid.
Ooh.
So that's been put out on Twitter. I've seen it in Twitter, I've seen it in videos, I've seen it in multiple areas, that there's more than normal and hard. I saw Luke Smith somewhere refer to a heroic version of the raid.
Oh my goodness, that sounds ridiculous. For me, I was just a tad bit disappointed that it was so soon after the 15th, because in a situation where they really want to make sure that we get maximum enjoyment, I just thought that a 2-week buffer period would have been nice for the community, because I let everybody go ahead, go through all the content, get all their characters, or pick 2 or 3 that they wanted to level up to 40. Also go ahead and get yourself some sweet weapons. But this really does put it back into the non-casual player's house. I mean, this is no longer a casual activity that like you can go after for World First. If you were looking to go in World First, you're going to need to grind the crap out of this DLC
but World
on the
First
15th.
Isn't a casual activity.
Oh, no, but like it's gotten so big to the point where a lot of people are just going to give it a shot. I've heard a lot of people mentioning that, oh yeah, we're going to give it a shot. We're going to try. Why not? But at this point, you're going to really need all of your players to be obsessed in order to be ready for that.
A short period of time to go through the story, get geared up, and get ready to do that raid.
7 hours of story.
I think a week or 2 was probably a preferred way to do it. Based off of having people play and be able to enjoy things a little bit more. Like this, to me, for the people that really want Worlds First, they're going to have to push through this content as hard as they can. And it just, it gets them in a position where soon they're like, oh, I've done the raid, I've done everything. I'm in a position where I'm, back in that lull where I'm like, oh, I've already done everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tons of good stuff today. We had the Court of Oryx. We know that the raid's coming out on the 18th. We know that the Taken King drops on the 15th. We now know a little bit about everything. We know that there are exotic swords coming in.
Whoop, whoop.
So yeah, it was definitely a very good day for Bungie. That's going to do it for us today, guys. Don't forget to check us out every Friday at twitch.tv/AimAssistGaming at 9 p.m. Pacific, where we talk about this type of stuff and more. If you enjoyed this, smack a like on this video and comment down below letting us know how you felt about this reveal and your opinions on everything that we talked about today. I'm Hambone, he's Nolxero, and we'll see you when we see you.
Phobos.